So welcome back to the next session here at Procurement and Supply Chain Live London 2023. And I'm pleased to welcome a fellow Scot, Scott Dance, or Scott Dance, depending on where in the country you're from. He's the UK and Ireland Procurement Engagement Director at Hays. Why don't you tell us about your background rather than me reading it out?
I was going to say, you're thinking, what the hell does that mean? So there's two parts to my job. I lead our recruitment procurement division for the UK and Ireland, as well as supporting some of our other countries like America and Germany. And then the other half of my job is working with our customers around different recruitment solutions, especially at the moment when it's quite tricky to find talent. In a nutshell, that's it. I'm not going to go through my 21 years history at Hays because you'll all be asleep, but that'll do for now, I think.
So why are you here today? Why is our procurement industry wanting to listen to a recruiter?
That is a good question. Why are you here? No, so I hope that you're here because I bring something different to the conference, and I guess our customers and the market saying that it's very hard to find the right procurement talent at the moment, and there are varying different reasons of that, which hopefully I'll cover some of them off today. But feel free to ask any questions if you want anything else.
Okay, so you've said the T word there, which is talent. We were talking about this earlier as well. A lot of companies around the world, not just here in the UK and Ireland, are struggling to both attract and retain talent. Now, they're two sides of the same coin, aren't they? So what are the challenges that companies are facing, and what are the main concerns, and how can organisations address those? Yeah,
good question. I guess I'll take it as two halves, really. The attract bit is really key and really difficult across the world and many different countries. That we're at kind of really low unemployment levels, which means most people are in jobs. The Great Resignation, if you want to call it that, happened a long while ago. Everybody moving, everybody getting different jobs. They're all in place now. So it's very, very hard to find people. And companies are still often, sadly, still in the same mindset of, I'm going to recruit someone from my background or my industry or certain universities, and not really opening up the pool of talent that's around. So looking at people from different locations, because we've got this hybrid working now. And then all the way back from archaic job descriptions that I was speaking to a lot of people about earlier that still look the same. I asked some of the people that I spoke to earlier, when was the last time a job description was rewritten? And no one could tell me. Probably because it's been 5, 10, however many years, which actually isn't in line with the market now and what people want. So looking at kind of your ED&I footprint, looking at ESG, looking at all the great projects that the companies are doing, and some of the EVP that we'll probably cover off a little bit later. So they're not doing that. And then from a retention perspective, there's a huge disparity between what employees want and what employers are offering. And I don't just mean package, I mean in terms of career development. Adrian from Radisson spoke really eloquently earlier around once he's been to a board meeting, he then relays that plan to his team members so they feel part of that plan. Often it doesn't happen. Often career development plans don't even happen. So people feel stuck where they are. Well, actually, if you just were a bit more open-minded around, if you're a head of procurement, what is the function doing? What is the business doing? And where you see yourself in that. Having a career development plan sounds very obvious, but many don't. I kind of question people in the room, do you have one for yourselves and your teams? What does it look like? Where do you kind of upskill from there? And how is your boss going to upskill you to the next position that you want to get to?
So when you talked about job descriptions there, so what are the main things that do need rewriting or re-updating? Where are we missing a trick?
Yeah, most, so should I say, I still see the good communication skills, good negotiation skills, stakeholder management, blah, 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 that you can just copy and paste from any company in the world, and you'll see the same things. What we need to start doing is being a bit more diverse. So often we're using biased language, which means only certain people will apply. We're not talking about hybrid working. What does it look like? We're not talking about the culture of the business and the company. We're not talking around the different types of projects. Appreciate some of them are sensitive and you can't tell everything because it's potentially on the open market if you're looking at job descriptions. But also where you place those adverts as well. Most people will place them on their own internal job boards or on LinkedIn. There are lots of other places to post these jobs as well. And briefing recruiters like us and my competitors, and also the in-house recruitment teams that are doing a lot as well. So there's a lot to be said around job descriptions as a piece of paper, but also how you advertise in, could you put that job description into a video to attract different types of people that may not want to read a really long, boring job description, for example.
So how do you get the balance right as an organisation for, I'm going to stick on this job description element for a while, the balance between what you're looking for and also what you provide as an organisation? What's the right balance to strike there?
Yeah, that was a really good question. I think that ultimately you need to outline what the job entails, but also you need to outline what that person will get from joining your organisation. So you might talk about, this is what we need. We need to have people that are collaborative thinkers and innovative workers and all these types of things that you might need in part of their job, and some of the qualifications. You might need SIPs, you might need MSIPs, you might not. But then it's also around what that person will get out of joining your organisation. And there's a bit of EVP around that, around if I join tomorrow, well, actually, I'm going to get training. I'm going to get SIPs training, perhaps, or I'm going to get online coaching, or I'm going to get progressed to the next level fairly quickly, or whatever it is, what is in it for me. Employees these days want to know what's in it for them. When I was a lot younger and I was looking for a job myself, I was quite happy to take what I could get and have the interviewer just interviewing me and I'm answering the questions as best I can. It's a two-way street now. So
yeah, and you mentioned culture, which is obviously super important, but also really difficult to convey, I would say, in a job description or even on a company's website. So how can an organisation best get across its culture credentials?
Yeah, well, first of all, spend a lot of time with whoever's doing your recruitment. Often, and I've heard it for the last 2 days, in any conference you go to, most businesses are people orientated. It doesn't matter what technology you buy. It's all about the people that are going to operate that technology, as an example. It's all people related at the moment. But what often happens is we get sent a job description, or a line manager says, we need a category manager. Can you go find one for us? So our instant response is, can we meet you? Can we talk about it? We want to know the cruxes of what it is you need, what the culture is like, who's in your team, what's the career progression. And often that gets put on the back burner. Oh no, we're too busy to do that. But that should be the most important part of finding the right people. Because if you have the right people, all the other stuff that keeps you up all night will go away. But people will think our recruitment will put that on the back burner, we'll get some CVs, we'll interview when we can, and that'll be fine. But it's not. So if you actually put people at the forefront and recruitment at the forefront when you are recruiting, and make sure you spend time, it could be your in-house teams. Now, a lot of in-house recruitment teams don't understand what procurement is, like other departments don't. So make sure you explain to them what is procurement, what it is you're trying to do, how it benefits the organisation, what strategic goals and aims that you've got for your team and department, and let them go and find the people that can fit within that culture, because that's basically how people are being recruited at the moment, on the culture, the skills, as opposed to what you see on a piece of paper.
Do you think the job of recruiting for procurement roles has become easier in the last couple of years because people actually understand what procurement is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think yes and no. I think yes, because more people understand what procurement is, as you just said. No, because there's not a load of people on the open market. So I'll give you some quick statistic. Hays ourselves, we probably about 18 months ago, every 6 calls that we made to a potential candidate, one of them said, I'm looking for a new role, here's my CV, can you help me? We're now at 17. So 1 in 17 people we call now is open to a new role, which is 3 times harder to find the right talent than it was previously.
So that suggests that companies are doing a better job at retaining their talent. So how are they doing that?
Yeah, they are. But I guess we had obviously the 18 months phase where a lot of companies put their recruitment on freeze and hold during the pandemic. A lot of people decided not to move, and then they all basically moved at once. And you kind of get that cycle of 2-3 years. So we're kind of in the midst of that at the moment, where people are employed, and kind of 2 to 3 years. So next year, we'll see if people become on the open market again. But from a retention point of view, there are people now that are more open to internal mobility. And what do I mean by that? I mean, changing categories. They're not having the same people running the same RFIs, same RFPs for the same category, doing a BAU churn role. They're actually moving them to different categories, looking at more innovation. The perceptions of procurement have gone up since the pandemic due to the kind of unsung heroes, which I'll say are the procurement people. I think I heard a conversation yesterday around all the PPE and where did that all come from, and businesses and different organizations and different functions are realizing the benefits of procurement. So there's a bit more investment in that. So therefore, people get paid a little bit more, which means they're kind of retaining their staff.
Yeah. Now, we touched on best practices for diversifying the procurement workforce. And you talked about, for instance, creating videos for people who might engage with those job adverts in a different kind of way. Can you give any other specific approaches that organisations should consider to promote, for instance, gender and racial diversity, and how organisations can incorporate those strategies into their own recruitment efforts?
This is something I feel quite passionate about, actually, and I feel like the ED&I or DE&I has kind of fallen to the back seat over probably the last year because ESG's come to the forefront and companies must do that. But what companies forget is the S part of ESG is around social value, which isn't just external, it's also internal as well. Some companies are deciding to take off names off CVs before giving it to a hiring manager to take away some of that gender and sometimes ethnicity parts. Some companies are going even more extreme than that and doing the sifting for the hiring manager, and the hiring manager won't even see the CV before they're on a call or in an interview with them, which probably sounds a bit extreme because you kind of really want to do a bit of pre-prep work, but some organizations are doing that. And also having a diverse panel. You know, employees or future employees want to know that the company they're joining is fully diverse. Now, how can you be diverse if you have the same types of people that look the same on the panel? Or in your careers website, it looks like the same profile and the same types of people. So now it's more about action as opposed to just talking about it.
Yeah, and I think you've just touched on this here, like talking about the employer website. There's a responsibility there for the employer to brand themselves and market themselves accurately. And when it comes around to recruitment for procurement positions and any other positions, to be frank. So how do they promote their value proposition to potential candidates? What are the best ways that they can do that?
Yeah, so I think it starts from the advertisement and then also consistency. Sometimes we see advertisements or job descriptions and we have briefs with the line managers, but then it's very different than when they get into interview. And the hiring managers need training. Again, I go back to the job description, but also hiring manager training. When was the last time the hiring manager had training on how to interview somebody in this day and age? Often not. Often the hiring manager gets thrown in, oh, we've got to hire someone, in you come. Actually, you need some coaching on that because you ultimately need to articulate the brand of the business, organization, the strategic goals, how this person can align to that, how your function aligns to that, and how you as an individual are going to coach and entice that person into becoming an employee of yours and then growing them throughout their career. So there's a lot to be said around that, equally around the website as well as doing different ways of advertising. We've spoken about videos, we've spoken about job descriptions, posting on different ways. From a diversity and inclusion point of view, there are different websites that you can go to attract different talent with different characteristics rather than just the standard ways and platforms and technology platforms to advertise jobs that everyone else will be doing.
To go back a step, you mentioned earlier how the supply, if you like, has diminished of procurement professionals, and obviously there's high demand. Now, in most economic situations, that comes down to price, right? If you've got high demand and low supply. So are procurement salaries increasing, or are those professionals looking for something beyond the salary? What's the best way of getting those people?
Yeah.
If you absolutely need that person, what do you need to do?
From my point of view, now salaries are always high in demand. We did a salary guide with SIPS a couple of months ago, and the average procurement person got an increase of over 7%, which is higher than that of the Office of National Statistics. We're also seeing that globally as well. So in America, it was a similar number, and in Europe, it was similar too. So it's not just a UK challenge. It's worldwide that procurement people, because of the perceptions of procurement, are getting paid higher than they were before. Now, because of there are a lack of candidates and the supply part of it all, or the demand part of it all, people know that. They are then inflating that even more. And we're seeing people moving for 20, 30% more than they were getting paid previously, where we'd normally say around, if you're going to move, between 10 and 12% increases is pretty good. 20, 30% because they know there's a lack of talent out there. But again, it goes back to the EVP. If you really want that person, you've got to articulate that, because money isn't everything. And we're seeing people go from the private sector to the public sector and taking pay cuts. Why? Because they want to give back to the community, because of the social value part of it is really important to them, as opposed to, and transformation, as opposed to doing the same thing but just getting paid more. We can all get acclimatized to spending, the extra bit of money we can all get acclimatized to spending that quite easily, right? But after 6, 12 months, do I still want to do that job? Maybe, maybe not.
Okay, just want to ask the audience here, maybe just a quick show of hands. Can anyone put your hand up if you're in a recruitment phase at the moment, so if you're actively trying to recruit people? Okay, there's a few hands there. And then keep your hand up if you're struggling to find that person. Okay, I would say, let's put it this way, around 75 or 80% of the people who are recruiting are struggling to find people. Does that surprise you, or is that exactly what you expected?
That's exactly what I expected. It's kind of realigning the way you recruit in the process. Now, I know it's not easy because you've got HR they're going to block you often, and you want to change that, and you want to be more innovative, and you can't necessarily do that, or you have to go through a certain framework. But there are different ways and nuances of making sure that you're bringing that talent in. And some of the things, hopefully, I've just said will help and resonate with you, of doing things a little bit differently. For example, as well, looking at the skills that you might need as opposed to what you need right now and how you normally recruit. Look at what skills you might need to do that job, as opposed to fishing in the same pond as everybody else, for example.
And the people who put their hand up who are actively recruiting, how many of you are using an agency to help you with that? Probably around 50%, I would say. And obviously, you're going to say, well, they should use an agency, right? Why are you not using an agency, just out of interest? The extra fees? You are using agencies. So, yeah, who's not using the agencies? Any reason why? Okay, that's fair enough.
Good on you.
For the benefit of the virtual audience, the gentleman said they get more than enough interest. So
good EVP, clearly.
Doing something very good there. Yeah. You might want to come and join us. We should discuss this. Okay, right.
Fair enough.
You're not telling us your company, which is fine. Does anyone have any questions from the audience? No questions. Okay, well, I think that's pretty much topic. Okay, let's just have one takeaway then from you, just to wrap things up. What's your one piece of advice that you would give to organisations who are struggling right now with their procurement recruitment?
I would say just reevaluate your process right at the beginning. Everything else will come at the end, onboarding and interviewing. But, realign your EVP and how you're looking to find talent, from advertising to process, and then hopefully you'll find what you need from there.
Okay, great way to finish here. Thank you very much, Scott.
Brilliant. Thank you. Cheers, Scott.
Thank you.